since we last met, I was at the Resilient Cities Conference. Paul Hawken was the lead speaker. He's well known in California for being a connector of business, environment, and social issues. He gave three kind of underlying commentaries. The need to re-engage our relationship with each other, which is the type of thing we're doing here. Seeing the world as a single system, and a look at Vancouver Island in that context when we're talking about CAVI, and the need for a transcendent movement. And that last point I think is really important, because again, that's what we're trying to do, is get out our silos, cross the boundaries, and take a collective approach to our future in Vancouver Island. Robert Frost, you probably heard this quote before. It's a very meaningful one for me anyway. Two roads diverged in the wood, and I took the one less traveled, and that has made all the difference. And I think that's where we're at. So what I wanted to talk about, and that's given me an entree to this first slide. I wanted to give a bit of history to give context for where we're at. John Muir, and I think probably you've heard of John Muir, he was the captain, the leader, the soul for parks in the North America. What I want to do though is give the context where Muir was working and how he managed to make major change. When I was back in Scotland this last year, I went to see his birthplace, which is Dunbar near Edinburgh. If you ever get the chance, take it in. It's a wonderful kind of background of the man's youth, coming to America in Wisconsin and coming like the 1860s, and thereafter being a lone voice almost in the need to protect our natural systems. But the man was ahead of his time for other reasons. We talk about watershed. We talk about designing with nature. He was there. But what he did was, when Roosevelt became president in 1901, he'd heard about this guy, John Muir, this radical, rebel Scot fella, wandering around, making all kind of pronouncements about need to do business differently. So much so that when he came to California, he says, I want to spend time with Muir on the mountain. And so he managed to get rid of all his bureaucrats and everything else, and off they went, saddled up the horse, and sat at the top of the mountain. The conversation that took part in those 24 hours was profound. So much so that Roosevelt came back to Congress, pushed a bill, which now is part of business as usual, we call it, but established the park system. And by the way, influenced park systems in Canada. He wasn't the only man, but he was certainly a leader. So when I say CAVI mission possible, I'm using the context of John Muir, one voice, who worked with the President Teddy Roosevelt. So what you have is the decision maker with the visionary coming together. Why am I spending time doing this? I'm doing it because I want to really ground it in Vancouver Island, because that's where we're at. This is walking the talk stuff now. It's not just being philosophical, good as it is, but grounding us in the future. And there you have that Muir, beautiful quotation, I think. When we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. So that's how we look at the way we do business. Now, on Vancouver Island, I think we can be proud of our attempts collectively to date. We've got 4 regional districts, the CRD, the Cowichan Valley, Nanaimo, and of course yourselves, Comox. As noted here, this is 90% of the population. Therefore, it's important that we focus in this area. It's not that Tofino and Port Hardy is not important, but this is where the transformation is going to take. This is where the movement of people coming into Vancouver Island is going to be. So we've got to get this picture right. And we've got to be bold. We've got to be visionary. We've got to take risks. And we've got, most of all, to get partners on board. And so, also, we're getting a presentation from Vancouver as well today, which again shows the linkage that we're trying to do as move this across the water as a collective initiative. So we talk about new business as usual. And this is the mantra we've been using, and it's worthwhile just repeating it, just to, certainly for myself, just to ground us back again, that visualize what we want Vancouver Island to look like in 50 years. Now 50 years is not long, but if we don't start somewhere, we start talking about 100 years, we lose people, we know that. But talking about 50 years is a plausible way to look at the issue. And of course, we've consistently talked about water-centric planning and designing with nature way of thinking and acting to create livable communities in balance with ecology. And I come back to earlier comments from Muir. He had seen the importance of protecting watersheds into the future. My colleague Jim Madison, now retired, used this quote in one of his presentations. And it's so succinct, really. If mitigation is about carbon, then adaptation is about water. There is no question, as climate change takes us by the ears, we're going to have to be ready, because the water issue is going to be profound. So connecting the carbon and to the adaptation to water, I think, is a succinct analysis of where we're at. So what does that mean? Well, we know we've talked about this before, and many of you have seen this, but again, this is moving from the top to the walk. Can we do this consistently in Vancouver Island, and then the Lower Mainland, and then British Columbia? Can we be a model for the future by being bold and visionary? So collaboration, design with nature, compact communities, increased options, you can see these for yourselves, but all tying into the whole question of sustainability. Striving for a lighter hydrologic footprint and protecting streams and the marine environment. So this is where Tim Pringle has added so much to our discussions, and Tim's with us today. Tim recognized that from Victoria to Campbell River, or at least above Victoria, this is where the action is happening. And those of you who work here know that better than I. So this is the area that we should provide the focus. One market from Cobber Hill to Campbell River. This is obvious perhaps, but it's interesting to remind ourselves. Balance settlement change with ecology for two reasons. Ecology can exist without habitation. Habitation cannot exist without ecology. Thank you very much. And there's a book I want to bring to your mind that's out these days. It's called The World Without Us. I don't know if you've read that. It's an interesting read. It basically says that the bugs will look after it quite well, thank you. When we are gone, they'll chew up all the nasties and we'll get the place back in order again. But it's a humble reminder that we are very reliant to be captured, to be working within the environment. Margaret Atwood, of course, is our Canadian author, who seems to become more and more interested in these type of topics. But she makes the comment, the economy is a wholly owned subsidiary of the environment. And for years we've separated these things out. For years we've done our thing and said, oh, by the way, we better protect that, whatever. It's a change in focus, and I think when we're talking about designing with nature and all the stuff we're talking about, we're right on track. So what? Now what? Then what? This is where the rubber hits the road. Will communities protect our well-being? Will we choose to treat settlement and change ecology and settlement change and ecological resources with equal understanding? Will we find balance? I'm going to close with this quotation. I take no ownership. My wife, who's a teacher, used to use this with her students. To get them to think big, to be bold, to be visionary, but do your homework. And I think this is what it's all about with CAVI. This is not a touchy-feely exercise saying, yeah, it would be nice to have Victoria this or Vancouver this. We're talking about making real change. And we have to do both the vision and the task. This was captured in a church inscription, supposedly in England in 1786. And I think it's as relevant today as it was then. A vision without a task is but a dream. A task without a vision is but drudgery. A vision with a task is the hope of the world. Change the last line. A vision with a task is the hope for Vancouver Island. Thank you.